The scent of old paper was different after midnight. During the day, the university library smelled like varnished tables and pencil shavings, but once the security lights clicked on and the glass doors were chained, the air thickened until it seemed you could taste cellulose on your tongue. That was when Carl Turner, night janitor for the Erasmus collection, made his rounds, mop bucket rolling in front of him, keys rattling on his belt, footsteps echoing through 6 cavernous floors. He liked the silence. Books were easier companions than people, and books never stared at the burn scar that scalloped the left side of his neck. On the last Tuesday of October, Carl was scrubbing a coffee ring off a shelf end cap in the anthropology alcove when his mop head snagged on something. He knelt, expecting a gum wad. Instead, his fingers brushed a rough spine wedged behind the bottom shelf. Someone must have shoved it there long ago. Faint cobwebs veiled the cloth boards. He pried the volume free and felt a tremor of childish delight. He had loved secret finds ever since scouring flea markets with his late mother. The book was square, maybe 9 inches to a side, bound in faded red buckram stamped with a gilded silhouette of an open hand. No title. A thin leather strap wrapped around a brass button kept it closed. When Carl unlooped the strap, the cover sprang up on hinges, and a 3-dimensional stage unfolded, a tiny reading room sculpted out of cardstock. Tables popped upright, lamps raised their emerald shades, and a miniature figure in grey librarian's garb leaned over a cart of books. The craftsmanship was exquisite, each accordion fold precise enough to shame origami masters. Carl chuckled. Pop-up books had been his mother's bribe for getting him to practice reading after his accident. He set the thing on a cleared spot of floor and took out his phone so the LED light could reveal the details. Under the first tableau ran a caption in ornate hand lettering, "The First Fate." Carl frowned, dramatic but hardly creepy. He traced the printed wood grain of the tiny floorboards and noticed an odd detail. The librarian figurine wore round tortoiseshell glasses and a lapel pin shaped like a rook. So did Margaret Cray, Erasmus's head librarian. Coincidence, he decided. Paper artists often modelled characters on real people. He was still crouched there when the building's internal clock chimed 1. With a start, Carl remembered his checklist. Bathrooms, trash bins, main lobby buffing. He refastened the strap, stuffed the book in his cart beneath a stack of cleaning rags, and rolled off toward the elevators. He would catalogue the curiosity later. The next morning, Carl slept until noon, woke to official messages pinging on his cracked laptop, and learned that his boss had died. Margaret Cray, age 67, had been discovered at dawn beneath a toppled ladder in the reserve stacks. A row of medieval folios had slid loose, shattering her skull. The campus memo called it a freak tragedy. Carl stared at the email until his coffee cooled, then remembered the pop-up scene, the paper librarian leaning over a cart between soaring shelves. It was nothing, he told himself. But by dusk the hairs behind his scar prickled with unease. He clocked in, nodded at the security guard, and pushed his cart straight to the anthropology alcove. With hands that wanted to shake, he opened the red volume to its second page. A new arena exploded from the cardstock, this time the circulation desk near the front doors. A miniature computer terminal glowed faintly. Behind it stood a paperman, sporting Paul Fisk's signature goatee and ponytail. The caption, "The Second Fate." 3 inches above Paul's head dangled the silver pendant of a ceiling-mounted globe, rendered in foiled cardboard. The filigree chain appeared to be snapping. Carl slapped the book shut. He found Paul shelving DVDs on the ground floor. "Dude, you're working tomorrow morning?" Carl asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Yeah, 8:30. Why? You mind switching? Take a night shift instead?" Paul arched an eyebrow. "I've got midterms to grade after 5. Can't swap. What's the big deal?" "Old pipes in the ceiling," Carl lied. "Maintenance, maybe drilling. I just think you should stay clear of the circulation area. You know, dust, debris." Paul laughed. "You worry too much." He clapped Carl on the shoulder and moved on. At dawn, Carl's phone buzzed again. Circulation clerk Paul Fisk, found dead after an ornamental globe, installed during the library's centennial, broke free and smashed his windpipe. Another freak accident. Carl vomited into his bathroom sink, then emptied half a bottle of bleach trying to scour the basin. His own reflection looked pale enough to haunt the Erasmus collection itself. He called campus police, rehearsing lines about a prophetic book, but hung up before the dispatcher connected. Who would believe a janitor with a chemical burn scar and a disciplinary note for drinking on shift 2 years ago? He needed proof, needed to break the chain of deaths. Night 3, he entered the library, clutching a toolbox instead of a mop. He headed straight to a tucked-away staff break room, where he wouldn't be interrupted, locked the door, and laid the book on a formica table. It seemed heavier, as if each recorded demise added lead to its spine. He wore thick gloves. The leather insulated him from the unsettling sense of heartbeat within the covers, and flipped to page 3. A diorama unfolded into the archive basement, rows of filing cabinets, a dehumidifier, and a solitary reading lamp. Posed beneath the lamp was Dr. Heather Liang, soft-spoken archivist and mother of twin girls. Her paper effigy knelt near an overturned humidifier, curling blue ribbons painted as vapor rose around her. Caption: The Third Fate. In the diorama, droplets condensed across the cabinet latches, rusting them shut. Carl swore. He tore the pop-up out at its glued tabs, wadded it, and shoved the crumple into a galvanized pail. He struck a match and dropped it in. The paper browned, shriveled, smoked, and then blossomed back into pristine color, unfolding like a metal flower reversing time. Carl yelped and kicked the bucket across the linoleum. The diorama righted itself mid-air and fluttered gently back onto the table, whole. He tried scissors. The blades snapped. He tried dousing the page in industrial solvent. The liquid beaded, rolled, never soaked in. When he opened the book at random, the basement scene still waited, unchanged. Carl slumped against a vending machine humming stale air. He could smash the humidifier, lock Dr. Liang out of the basement, stage a sickness so the library closed. But the first 2 fates had manifested despite obstacles. Predictive, not causal, he reasoned. The book didn't make accidents, it recorded them in advance. He turned to the final folio, hoping for answers. There was a pocket of blank cardstock, no scene yet printed. A single phrase inked along the bottom gutter. When all pages turn, the book turns on you. His throat tightened. How many staffers worked here? 40? 50? Was the cursed thing counting every soul down to the last janitor? He skimmed the front matter for publication info, press marks, anything. Between the flyleaf and first pop-up was a piece of parchment embossed with the same open-hand silhouette. Underneath read, "Property of the Sibylline Press, do not shelve." Carl Googled the name. No results. He tried forums of occult ephemera, secret presses, book arts. Nothing. The Erasmus Collection's own cataloguing system listed no entry under Sibylline. At 3:12 a.m., the cleaning supervisor radioed, "Carl, you're not answering. Lobby floor still dirty. Problem?" He stuffed the book under his jacket. On my way. All shift, he felt the spine against his ribs like a live coal. The third death made headlines citywide. Dr. Heather Liang was electrocuted when a shorted dehumidifier flooded the archive basement. The library closed for safety inspections. In theory, that ought to have comforted Carl, but the book's prophecy had bypassed inconvenience before, and closings meant layoffs. He might be next, either on the chopping block or under a tombstone. The guilt hurt worst. He had known and failed. Yet how could he stop a mechanism that rewound itself? On Saturday, a memorial service for the 3 victims filled the library auditorium with wilting chrysanthemums and institutional grief. Carl stayed outside, smoking near a service entrance. Dean Rothschild, whose penny loafers Carl regularly shined without being asked, exited mid-eulogy and stood beside him. The dean exhaled through his nose, avoiding eye contact. "Bad week," Carl offered. "Bad omen, more like," Rothschild murmured. "Superstitious nonsense, but donors recoil at cursed library headlines." He flicked an invisible speck from his cuff. "We're installing more cameras, motion sensors, the works. If sabotage is afoot, we'll catch it." Carl imagined surveillance footage of himself hauling a glowing book around. He ground the cigarette out. "Good plan, sir." That night, he rode the bus across town to a used bookstore with a reputation for the arcane. He showed the owner the pop-up volume, but not the interior. "Curious little piece," the man said, squinting through jeweler's loupes. 20th century board book hinges, but the aesthetic feels Jacobean. Where'd you get it?" "Found it." "How much you want?" "Information." The owner laughed. "Most people want the Necronomicon. Here's the thing about cursed objects. They feed on attention. Study them, they notice back." He tried to hand it over. Carl hesitated. "What if I leave it here, lockbox, whatever?" he asked. "You'd just transfer the monkey's paw. Someone else opens it, starts the game anew." Game. That suggested rules, maybe loopholes. "What if no one opens it?" Carl said. The owner's grin faded. Eventually, curiosity wins. Centuries pass, some descendant tugs the ribbon. Best to finish the hand you're dealt. Finish. The blank folio. Carl took the book and slipped out into rain that smelled of pennies. He spent Sunday drafting a spreadsheet of staff names, cross-referencing duty rosters, trying to predict who might populate page 4. That approach was futile because the book's timing was irregular. 2 deaths within 36 hours, then 1 after 48. A grim lottery. Unable to sleep, he lay on his cot in a rented room and replayed his mother's bedtime stories. She'd told him that every curse had a counterspell, names spoken backward, salt circles, iron nails. She had never explained why she believed such things, just kissed his forehead and said, "Some doors swing both ways, mi cielo." The next shift arrived. The library reopened despite the inspections not yet complete. Donors had insisted. Carl found a pretext to wipe tables near the reference desk, where Enid Holloway, retired English teacher turned volunteer, sorted cards. He waited for something to fall, spark, shatter. Nothing. Maybe the book needed him to read the page before destiny advanced. He ducked into a supply closet, heart pounding, and cracked the cover. The 4th diorama slid up. The reference desk identical. Miss Holloway's grey bun towered above stacks of index cards. But there was something else. Carl squinted behind her, rose a hulking silhouette stitched from black tabs, a tall book cart overloaded with dictionaries teetering toward her. Caption: The Fourth Fate. He raced out. "Miss Holloway, let me help with those." She looked up, puzzled. "I'm fine, dear." Carl seized the heavy Oxford volumes at the top, effectively shrinking the tower. "Fire Marshal's new policy," he lied. "Weight limit on carts." She smiled indulgently. "If you say so." He carted the books away, stashing them flat on a low shelf. For the next hour he hovered, tidying pens, stacking scratch pads, ensuring no cart came near. When his shift ended at 4, Miss Holloway was alive. Hope flared. Maybe the future could be revised. He hadn't destroyed the book, but he'd changed the script. At home, he opened to page 4. The scene remained, but had altered subtly. Miss Holloway leaned back from a toppled cart, hair tuft dishevelled, but she smiled unhurt. Above the caption, a new line appeared: "Fate defied, but debt remains." Exhausted relief washed through Carl. He poured whiskey into a chipped mug and toasted the empty room. "Screw your debts," he muttered. Still, the phrase implied reckoning postponed, not erased. Monday afternoon, a staff memo announced voluntary leaves for those feeling uneasy. Miss Holloway took one. Others stayed, insisting life must go on. Carl felt every step he took inside the building, as though he walked across a chessboard he could not see. Page 5 unveiled itself Tuesday at 2:13 a.m., when Carl, tempted by fatal curiosity, unclasped the book while hiding in the stairwell. A study carrel materialized, its surface strewn with blueprints. The engineering intern, Luis Ortega, dozed face down beside a thermos. Above him, a fluorescent ballast sagged, wires sparking. Caption: The Fifth Fate. Carl sprinted to the 3rd floor. Luis was there exactly as depicted, headphones on. Carl yanked the young man back seconds before a crack rang out. The fluorescent fixture dropped, shattering glass where Luis's head had rested. Luis gaped, unharmed save glass shards in his hoodie. "Holy, how do you know?" "Routine inspection," Carl gasped. "Saw the bracket loose earlier." The commotion drew security, management, a torrent of questions. Maintenance teams scoured every fixture. Luis sang Carl's praise to anyone who'd listen, calling him guardian angel. But when Carl checked, the diorama again had updated. Fixture shattered, Luis safe, yet a new footnote glimmered red: the hand records balance. Escape one, fate, another shall accrue. Carl pictured a ledger somewhere, souls owed. He had saved 2, but maybe the debt transferred, doubled. Who would be next? He flipped hurriedly forward. The blank pocket had shrunk. 2 new leaves nested inside like buds waiting to bloom. The final page inches closer, he realized. He strode into Dean Rothschild's office, unannounced, brandishing the book. The dean startled. "Mr. Turner, I'm in a meeting." "Look." Carl opened to page 2, 3, 4, 5, miniatures glimmering. "It predicts accidents." I stopped too, but something's seriously wrong. Rothschild's jaw tightened. "You expect me to believe cardboard magic? Staff are jittery enough without urban legends." "It's not a legend." Carl smacked the desk, sending pens rolling. "Call the others who died. Look at the resemblance." Rothschild folded his arms. "Put the book down." Carl did. The dean reached for it, then hesitated, as if wary of contamination. He slid a folder between fingers and cover, gingerly opening. As he studied the pop-ups, his dismissive air faltered. "These likenesses, impossible. I can save more lives, but I need authority. Close the building, evacuate staff." The dean paced. "Donors would crucify us. Exams start next week. and you have no concrete threat, just artwork. A sudden crash erupted from the hallway. They rushed out. A ceiling panel had caved, scattering insulation across tile, but no one was hurt. Rothschild's aide, who might have been walking there seconds earlier, stared white-faced. Rothschild turned to Carl. "All right, I'll authorize lockdown tonight for HVAC overhaul. But you, Turner, will stay and figure this out. I'll station guards at every door to ensure no students sneak in." Carl hadn't planned on working alone with the damn thing, but maybe isolation would let him find the rule to end the curse. Twilight bled purple through stained glass as the last employees exited. Lights dimmed to security mode, leaving aisles in shadow. Guards patrolled only periphery corridors. Carl had free run of the interior. He opened the book atop the grand circulation desk. Page 6 revealed no miniature person, only a life-size three-dimensional hand bursting upward, palm out, cardboard fingers jointed with copper brads. The hand pointed at Carl. Caption: "The collector claims his servant." Coldness clenched his stomach. He tried to skip ahead. The blank folio now displayed a pencil outline of a janitor with a scarred neck holding a mop like a banner. The caption space was empty, unscripted. Carl whispered, "Not yet written." He recalled the shop owner's words. "Finish the hand you're dealt." The curse wanted pages turned. It wanted him. If he refused, it would hunt others. But maybe he could end the book by completing the last page on his terms. He rummaged for supplies, archival glue, bone folder, razors, coloured cardstock left from children's programming. With trembling focus, he crafted small pop-up elements: a locked door, a seal of salt, a burning heart. Finally, he cut a tiny version of himself, but instead of a mop, he armed the figure with scissors severing puppet strings. He glued the additions over the blank folio, writing beneath in bold marker, "The final fate." Curse returned to sender. As he pressed the paper down, the book vibrated. The copper-jointed hand on page 6 convulsed, crumpling edges. A gust of dry wind whooshed from the spine, scattering dust motes that sparkled like embers. Shelves shuddered. Overhead bulbs flickered. Carl held the covers shut, cinched the leather strap twice, then slipped the book into a fireproof document bag and locked it inside a steel utility cabinet bolted to the floor. Silence settled, broken only by Carl's ragged breathing. He waited minutes, hours, time lost definition, yet no screaming faces appeared in dioramas, no shelves collapsed. Finally, he unlocked the cabinet. The bag felt inert, like dead weight rather than pulsing heart. He left it sealed. At dawn, Rothschild and the security team convened. They found no new incidents. Carl handed the dean the padlock key. "Lockbox stays shut. Never unstrap the book. Transfer it to special collections under maximum containment, or dump it in the ocean. I don't care. Just don't open it." Rothschild nodded, chastened. "We'll hire experts." "Not me," Carl said. "I quit." He removed his key ring, the metal jangling like sleigh bells. Outside the library, sun warmed the scar on his neck first, always the most sensitive skin. He inhaled, tasting dew instead of old paper. Students drifted past, coffee cups in hand, unaware of how narrowly fate had recharted itself. 3 blocks away, in an alley behind the used bookstore, a sanitation crew heaved recycling bundles into a compactor. Among them lay an ordinary children's pop-up book missing its strap, pages blank, its red buckram faded and harmless. The worker tossed it in. Cardboard crushed, hinges snapped, paper pulp mashed into refuse. The compactor growled, swallowed, and fell still. A mile north, in a dust-choked warehouse, A crate labeled Sibylline Press cracked open. Hundreds of identical red volumes sat stacked like mischievous bricks. Atop them perched a single book, leather strap undone, pages fluttering though no breeze blew. The first diorama raised itself, an urban garbage facility, and within the miniature scene, a sanitation worker leaned over a compactor about to jam. Caption: The First Fate.